Follow the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Welcome in. It is Follow the Money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Mitch Moss along with Jonathan Von Tobel, live downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. This show is brought to you by DraftKings. Paulie with the day off today after sitting in yesterday with Matt Youmans and doing the show on Christmas Day. We are loaded on this 3-hour program today. Paul Stone coming up in 45 minutes to go over some bull bets for this week. Aaron Renning on the NBA today. And we'll talk to Will Hill, VSiN contributor, a little bit later on some of the bets that he likes for today and this week. I don't have any kids. JVT, you're much younger than me. You do have two young whippersnappers. Mature. Is Christmas Day fun for you at this stage of your life?
No. God, no. Because here's a problem. Here's the thing, right? So we do a lot of the gift giving and gift opening on Christmas Eve, right? So there's still some stuff on Christmas morning, but for the most part, we do a lot of celebrating. And then, Santa brings a couple of things in the morning. Christmas Day. The problem, and I think I'll speak to anybody out there who has children, the problem with Christmas Day is twofold. One, it's just a mess because there's just stuff everywhere, right? Kids want to open every single thing that they got, whatever. So you got to kind of like hide them and, no, we don't need to do that one right now. The other part is construction. If you get something that has to be put together, the 5-year-old and the 2-year-old aren't going to put it together, right? I've got to put it together.
Of course.
So I've got to put together the Iron Golem Minecraft Lego set yesterday, right? I've got to put together the small kitchen. I've got to do all of these things. So it's not the greatest. I would love to sit back and just kind of get a little buzzed and watch sports. Not really the case, but I did bust out the rollerblades yesterday, so that was good.
So let me ask you this, and this goes out to the audience as well. Doesn't matter your situation. You could be like me. I'm married, but I don't have any kids. You could be single. You could be in JVT spot, married, couple kids, whatever the story is. Too many games yesterday on Christmas? FTM@vsin.com is the email. We're on X at VSiN Live at Mitch Moss Radio at Paulie Howard. I found myself taking a break during the middle game in the NFL.
Yes.
Right? Because it's like you do need, and I get it. It fell on a Monday, so the NFL went above and beyond this year and put 3 games on the board for us, and then the NBA, forget about it, it's all day long. But at some point, you're going to have to do the gift swapping, right? The opening. It's nice here in Las Vegas, so you spent a little bit of the day maybe outside with the dogs, whatever it was. It's like from morning until late last night. It's like, it's a pretty busy schedule here. Maybe we want to dial it back a notch.
I mean, I agree. Look, I love the NBA, so Christmas is always a fun day for me because I enjoy not only Christmas is my favorite holiday, but I like the sport of the NBA. So Christmas and NBA is always really great. Having said that, could I use 3 games instead of 5? Yeah, probably.
Right.
NFL, could I use 2 games instead of 3? Yeah, I think so.
I think 2 on Christmas Day is pretty much the max moving forward.
Yep, and I know that the NBA and the NFL are now kind of at war with each other for the foothold on Christmas. L in that war, by the way, for the NBA yesterday. But I do think that we can tone it down a bit. And I get it. A lot of the time, sometimes you'll put it on for background noise, right? While you're doing stuff, whatever. So I think maybe it's a little unique for people like us who have to watch it to a certain extent and pay attention. So I kind of get it. But for me, I did find myself, like you said, I think I passed out for the first 2.5 quarters of Eagles-Giants because I was like, I've been up since 1 o'clock and got up at 5 because Santa's here and all this stuff.
Of course.
Yeah, I gotta tap out for a couple hours.
And then the eyeballs are definitely going to be on the Chiefs-Raiders game because you couldn't believe what was going on. And are they going to come back and win this thing, which they did not? And then you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I need to save myself for the Ravens-49ers because that's supposed to be the game of the year. And it turned out to be this thumping at the hands of Baltimore, going to San Francisco last night and taking them apart 33-19, your final score. I think we'll get into the MVP conversation a little bit later on. But beyond that, more importantly here, in terms of San Francisco futures, right? And how important that game was for their overall resume. Well, because they were gifted the win, the divisional early Christmas present they got from a team inside the NFC West last week on Monday night when the Seahawks beat the Eagles, meant that the Niners could have the 1 seed wrapped up by Week 18. That's no longer the case. And who do they get now in Week 18? A very tricky Rams squad that happens to be playing great football. And, I don't know, maybe the Rams need that game to get into the playoffs. But also, in a big spot like that, to have your second-year quarterback and the MVP frontrunner, the guy who was odds-on, priced anywhere from -$2, even higher going into the game, to throw up a stink bomb like that. Now the question is going to be, I can't even wait for the 49ers' first playoff game because the entire week it's going to be filled with, what do you do with Brock Purdy? Can we trust this guy in a big spot?
Yep.
You can smell it from 3 weeks away.
And here's the thing about Purdy's performance yesterday. I know a lot of people, I got a text, oh, this is just variance. Well, I don't think it is, right? The first interception, just didn't see the safety at all. Safety just scrapes over the top, picks him off in the end zone. 100% on him.
Yep.
But even a couple of these, right? The one where he extends the play out and receiver comes back to him, that guy's covered. You can't put that in that situation because that what happens. It gets defended, it pops up, and then it gets picked off. Those are things that Brock Purdy those were on him. And the crazy thing about this is, we were talking about the stat that was out there for Shanahan, 0-37 in his career, went down by 8 or more points in the fourth quarter. That's a hard situation to come back from, but it does speak to the overall narrative for this team. And go back to the 3 games in which they lost, right, consecutively. They have had trouble when not holding on to the lead and doing what they want to do. When the game script gets away from San Francisco, it does seem that this is a team that has those issues. And going through the regular season, it's a little different in the postseason. More than likely, when you're facing the best teams in the NFL, you're going to be trailing. So can you be able to dig yourself out of some small holes if that's going to be the case? If you're taken out of your first read, if you're off script, can Purdy operate? And I don't think we have enough of evidence to say 100% no, he cannot do it. But there is a growing case that would make you feel stronger about saying, no, he cannot do it.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many of those INTs were actually really on him? Of the 4 last night, the first one absolutely was.
Yep.
The second one was kind of a wonky play where the cornerback came in on a blitz and was it going to be a run? And then he did, it was a fake, and then he was going to go over to Deebo Samuel, and the guy jumps up, taps it up in the air, gets picked off. But he should have seen the guy coming at him.
Right.
It was a bad throw to put it right at the guy. And so the guy made a really good play. The ball still has to go up in the air and then find a Ravens defender. I understand that part. The third INT, I think, is the one that you're talking about, right? Because he also goes, it was a broken play. There were flags on the play. And then eventually he has some running room and he's scrambling out to his right. Then he goes across his body. It does hit Kittle kind of in the hands a little bit, but the guy comes in, knocks it, goes flying up again. And then the fourth INT was just as bad as it gets, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, 2 of them, yes, absolutely horrendous. The other 2 were, I think maybe a little bit debatable. Definitely the third one, you can't make that throw anyway. So he had a really bad game in a really bad spot for him, especially for MVP ticket holders on that guy. But also, that set up the Ravens last night, right? The drive that they put together where they eventually settled for the field goal, I thought was the best drive of the game, and they couldn't score a touchdown. It was that drive where Lamar eventually had that really long run, and that was ultra impressive. I think that was on 3rd down to keep the drive going for the Ravens. That was their best drive, I thought, of the game. Settled for a field goal. Other than that, they were set up in beautiful field position because they were so bad on the flip side.
It's ironic, too, because the opening drive, you thought, was this going to be one of those games for the Ravens where he trips over the ref and it's a safety, and you're like, oh, boy, this is how it's going to go
Kind of what you were thinking, yeah.
Yep, that's what I thought, at least, and then it completely turns on its head. And I'll say this, too, I thought overall there was some, and I think you did see, again, like you said, we'll talk about MVP because I don't any one game does not define you as a player, right? But I do think that yesterday you saw some of what people speak on when they speak with some nuance, not just saying he's a game manager, but saying that Brock Purdy does have some flaws and he's not the most valuable player for this team. Go back to Mitch. There was one where the Ravens scored a touchdown drive and they respond, right? And there was a really nice dig route by Deebo Samuel. If you hit him in stride, he's probably taken that another 15 yards or so, but instead it's a little too high. Deebo's got to go up for it. He ends up getting tackled. They had one where George Kittle was wide open. It looked like on a post-looking route. He throws it up where Kittle's got to stop and go up for it. Little things like that on top of the interceptions, I think you saw why there are some people who are hesitant to at least say this is the best player in the National Football League. And I think that's kind of fair when you watch that yesterday.
So he went from, let's call it minus $2. Yep. He was higher than that, but we'll go minus $2. To where he's at today at around 12-1. So he's just shot now? Can you really have that bad of a game on a Monday night on Christmas with 2 games to go after this and win the MVP?
I don't know. It's funny because on Saturday we were talking about this, and I was like, look, he's probably still going to be the favorite unless he throws 6 interceptions, completely melts down, and denounces the Lord on the PA mic. He's not right. He's not gonna fall down that far. Well, that happened outside of denouncing God. And I do think when you look at it, I think it does speak to how ridiculous we get with this. And if he was the odds-on favorite at over minus $2 heading into yesterday, should his odds get knocked for their performance? Yes. should he fall below Tua Tagovailoa and get to like where he's at now, 12-1, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Right. So we're just going to forget about what happened the entire season.
Right.
When he was leading the league in all these key categories.
And I'm someone who doesn't think he should win MVP, but that's a little ridiculous.
I also don't think Lamar Jackson at minus 160 makes any sense whatsoever. Here is John Harbaugh, his head coach, talking about MVP Lamar after the game.
I thought Lamar had an MVP performance tonight. It takes a team to create a performance like that, but it takes a player to play at that level. To play at an MVP level, it takes a player to play that way. And Lamar was all over the field doing everything. He operated a pretty complicated game plan. I thought Todd and the coaches deserve a lot of credit for the game plan. Lamar operated. He made decisions on the field. And then just keeping plays alive, trusting his offensive line. The offensive line was outstanding with the protection. Lamar trusted those guys. He kept plays alive. He moved in the pocket. He created space for the coverage guys. Our guys did a great job of scramble drill, of getting open. I think we had a new number of plays that were extended that were big plays for us. So just a complete game by Lamar.
He's minus 160 overall again from week 1 until right now. When you look at the overall performance, I'm sorry he's not having an MVP season. I know people are going to disagree with that. And we'll continue this throughout the show. It doesn't have to be the quarterback from the best team or the team with the best record in football. Once, please, can we look away from quarterback, possibly?
I mean, I thought he was great on the third interception.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because Lamar had 3 INTs defensively last night, right?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Why can't we give it to a non-quarterback? So we'll touch on that coming up, and it felt like a cry for help. It's getting worse. Details on that coming up next.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
VSiN Pro subscribers get everything up on the website, and there's a bunch up there. You get the pro tools, like my favorite, the NBA Daily Player Prop Analyzer. Gives you history on player props, points, rebounds, assists, three-point makes, and more. You get the Pro Picks page, of course. Wes Reynolds and others frequently up there on the leaderboard. Pro tips and the 24/7 live stream. If you want to check it out, see what we have to offer, introductory offer for only $9.99, and check out other subscription offers at vsin.com/subscribe.
Time now for professional sports bettor Paul Stone to join the program. Matt Youmans is off his regular weekly spot with us here as he filled in for me yesterday. You can follow Paul on X. He's at Paul Stone Sports. That's also the name of his podcast as well, which you can get wherever you get your podcast. Happy holidays, Paul. Thanks for the time. We appreciate it as always. Let's begin here with the game that we have on Monday, New Year's Day. And you've had plenty of time now to think about it after the matchup. Michigan's lane 2 against Alabama. That number, it has been pretty rock solid between 1.5 and 2. Couple of things here. Make a case for which side you like in the game. And when we get to this spot on New Year's Day at the Rose Bowl, do you think Michigan is still going to be the favorite at kickoff?
Well, I tell you, Mitch, that's a good question. First of all, I didn't need a whole lot of time to think about this game when the lines were released. I took Alabama right off the bat, took them plus the 2, and certainly a great question for people who have not yet entered the marketplace on this game. What's it going to do between now and next Monday, 6 days from today? And I don't think that, in my mind, you never know, but there's no question outside of an injury that Michigan's not going to be favored by more than 2 points. They're either going to be a 2-point favorite, pick 'em, could be Alabama favored. So I think if you're going to take the Alabama side, you want to go ahead and jump in. If you're looking at Michigan, you might wait and get this game at pick 'em or might even get a point. But, you look at this Alabama team breaking this game down. After its 34-24 home loss to Texas in week 2, Alabama looked like anything but a national title contender. The next week, things didn't get a whole lot better for the Tide. They benched Jalen Milroe, got a look at Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner at quarterback, didn't find any answers there, struggled to a 17-3 victory at South Florida. And to me, anyway, on that day, it became crystal clear that the Tide would either sink or swim with Jalen Milroe at quarterback in 2023. And I'll admit, this year's version of the Tide, certainly not Nick Saban's finest, but they've made incremental improvements during the course of the season. Milroe's been a big part of that growth. They are a contender, obviously, for the national championship. Meanwhile, Michigan, making their third straight trip to college football's 14 playoff, got upset by TCU last year, lost to eventual national champ Georgia by 23 the prior year. You look at this game, and to me, the Wolverines are simply not as explosive offensively as they need to be. Doing some statistical comparison to last year, Blake Corum averaged 5.9 yards per carry last year, only 4.7 this year. And then his backfield mate, Donovan Edwards, 7.1 yards per carry in 2022, less than half that this year, only 3.5 yards per carry for Edwards. And then J.J. McCarthy, he's only thrown one touchdown pass the past 5 games. A real interesting story in The Athletic a few days ago by Bruce Feldman, quoted some anonymous Big Ten coaches, said Michigan had not been the same team since the NCAA's investigation into alleged sign stealing. You know, whether that's true or not, who knows, but it does present a fair question and certainly could enter into a person's handicap. Lastly, the SEC versus non-SEC foes in the college football playoff era. So since this playoff format began in 2014, the SEC 14-3 versus non-SEC foes. The Big Ten only 3-6. All 3 victories by Ohio State. I like Alabama +2 to defeat Michigan outright in that college football semifinal.
Wow. All right, Paul. For this next one, please come with a little bit more analysis, okay? Alamo
Okay.
Bowl, my favorite game on the board outside of the playoffs here. I can't wait to watch this. Arizona has been a machine at the window, taking on Oklahoma State. There's been a steady trickle in favor of the Sooners, but we're now under 3. Is this the buy point here on the Wildcats?
You know, I think it is. And, you know, as I've said previously, the handicap in the bowl games, more about information, less about the number. Looking at yesterday's Arizona Daily Star, the Wildcats, they've only had 8 players enter the transfer portal. That number's almost double for Oklahoma. The majority of Oklahoma's losses on the offensive side of the ball. Most notable individually of those losses being quarterback Dylan Gabriel, who's transferred to Oregon, but also very notable, Oklahoma's going to be without 3 starting offensive linemen. 2 of those, center Andrew Raym, right tackle Tyler Guyton, have opted out to prepare for the 2024 draft. Left guard Savion Byrd, he's transferred to SMU. And still another, true freshman left guard Caden Green. He started 5 games this past season. He's in the transfer portal, not expected to play against Arizona. Arizona, one of college football's biggest surprises, any way you slice it this year. They were picked by everyone, including myself, to finish in the bottom third of the Pac-12, but they're 9-3 on the season. 2 of their losses in overtime, the other by only 7 points. Their quarterback, redshirt freshman Noah Fafita, he took over after 4 games for Jaden DeLora. Never looked back. Arizona 10-2 against the spread this year. Oklahoma, at one point this year, ranked number 5 after defeating Texas. They had visions of the National College Playoff, not being in San Antonio 4 days before New Year's. That wasn't their goal. Arizona's the more motivated team, excited to be playing one of college football's all-time great programs. I like Arizona by a field goal or more over Oklahoma.
I would have laid a lot of points on LSU had Daniels stuck around and played in this game after winning the Heisman Trophy. It was and I like the backup. All reports out of that area of the country told me before the season started the kid's really, really good, Nessmeyer. Now they're laying 9.5 against Wisconsin, and I know Wisconsin closed. They needed basically 2 wins to become, to get to the spot. They beat Nebraska, they beat Minnesota, they got there. They're 7-5. But overall, Paul, very disappointing year in Madison for this team. They're playing on New Year's Day. They're used to this. The fans will travel, but can they keep up points-wise and score enough to make it interesting here against LSU, who, with the backup quarterback, in my opinion, will still put up points?
I mean, that's kind of my breakdown, Mitch. I mean, you got to be revved up a little bit offensively to keep up with this LSU team, even with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. And LSU, frankly, they hadn't had quite as many opt-outs as I thought they would. And Brian Kelly, a couple of days ago, said he fully expects the Tigers' 2 1,000-yard receivers, those being Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, to play against Wisconsin. Those guys combined for over 146 catches, over 126 yards receiving 29 touchdowns, a whole lot of production. So the fact that those guys are going to play big for LSU, a lot of teams in today's version of college football don't have a capable backup quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier has played some football over the last 3 seasons, thrown 174 passes, so he's seen some action. LSU's defense, obviously not real strong, gave up over 29 points a game, 417 yards a game. But again, I'm just not sure Wisconsin's offense is revved up enough to exploit the Tigers' vulnerability. In fact, in their final 7 games this year, the Badgers only averaged 15.7 points per game in regulation play, didn't reach 30 points a single time in their last 7 games. Wisconsin going to be without their top offensive weapon, Braylon Allen. He rushed for almost 3,500 yards in his 3-year career there in Madison. Going to be without 3 of their top receivers. Going to be without their multi-year starting center, Tanner Bortolini. So I think they're going to have trouble keeping up in this track meet. Wisconsin, they didn't beat a single Power 5 team this season that currently has a winning record. I like LSU by double digits over Wisconsin.
Awesome breakdowns as always. You can follow Paul on X. He's at Paul Stone Sports. The name of his podcast, which is available wherever you get your podcasts, is also called the Paul Stone Sports Podcast. Happy holidays. Have a great new year, and we'll talk to you soon, pal.
Hey, thanks for having me. Have a great day, guys.
Yep,
Thanks, Paul.
You too. There you go. Good stuff from Paul. He had a couple of dogs win outright last week when he joined us. He was on Air Force. They won that game outright. And the other game that he was on, oh boy, I'm blanking on it now. He was 2-1 last week, and he had 2 dogs. I know he had Troy, and they lost outright to Duke. And now it's going to bother me. Now
Northern
I have
Illinois?
to get it. No.
No, okay.
My bad. I'll get it for you at some point. He was a Northwestern. They won outright.
Oh,
Las
yeah,
Vegas
that's a
Bowl.
good one. Yep.
You're covering UNLV in Kansas tonight.
Yes.
It's a mass. Is this game? It's 67 for the total. I think this game can go one of 2 ways, and it could be high scoring on either one of them. But like 50-30 is something I could see happening. Kansas just doing whatever they want. I can also see UNLV keeping it close and having a chance to win.
Yeah. It could go for those who don't remember the Mountain West Championship game, that game went over 62.5. I think that was the number. And that was a lopsided victory in favor of Boise State. I think it's realistic, but that number was 2, so 2.5. 13 seems like a lot.
Yeah. Up next, we'll get into Week 17 numbers in the NFL. Plus, it appears as if his regular season is now in doubt. I'll tell you who that is next here on Follow the Money. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Got a lot of power here at the network, so I requested, nay, demanded that we keep this holiday special going. $79 gets you everything we do until May 1st. Daily best bets, daily articles in every single sport. Our guys behind the scenes do an awesome job in terms of writing and content up on the website. Betting splits, betting guides. We're going to have one for the Super Bowl. We're going to have one for March Madness. We might have one just for a random weekend. Who knows? We do a lot of stuff. Check out everything we have to offer up on vsin.com and get your subscriptions options at vsin.com/subscribe.
All right, little NBA here as we are now beyond the Christmas Day games. Aaron Renning joins the program now, one of the best there is in the entire world at betting this sport. He's on X at ER Sports 1. Aaron, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Thanks for the time today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Certainly happy holidays to you guys and your audience, but good to be with you.
So let's begin with one of the games that we watched yesterday with the Celtics, and they looked impressive yet again, taking out the Lakers, covering all those numbers. Game goes over the total as well. Where are you at with their power rating compared to the rest of the league, and how does this team compare to some of the best teams that you've power rated over recent years?
I mean, it's a good question, and I have nothing but really positive things to say. I thought, this team was tremendous coming into the season. When I initially did their power rating to start the year, I put in my notes, they can't be this good. So I had them power rated through the roof, and I bet on them, the first, I think, 2 weeks of the season. But hey, let's be honest, the marketplace quickly caught on, and there really wasn't a lot of value with the Celtics, pretty early after a while. With that said, I was pretty shocked that they were a 3-point favorite over the Lakers yesterday. But, Boston 23-6 straight up. I believe that includes yesterday. But just a couple of units up from a betting standpoint. But I think that starting five is just tremendous, about as good as I've seen. I think a couple of questions, obviously, for the Celtics as they move forward. Can Jason Tatum kind of get into the stratosphere of a true MVP superstar? We've been waiting for that for a couple of years. We've obviously seen signs of that, to carry them to an NBA title. But I'm not sure he needs to be with so much firepower on this team. But, what you really love for me about the Celtics team, from a championship standpoint, is, you take their top six players. They're all plus defensive guys as well. They can defend, and obviously they're efficient from an offensive standpoint as well. How they come down from Mazzulla from a coaching standpoint will be interesting. I thought that in just kind of following him so far this year, they learned some things, or he learned some things last year, and basically said, he kind of did the Budenholzer, if you will, and just kind of ran their system in the playoffs and didn't really adjust. So I think he learned from that, and we'll see some better adjustments for them once they get into the playoffs.
All right, speaking of power ratings and adjustments, how much have you adjusted Memphis now that Morant's out there? Because, I've been surprised that the resistance I've found from the market. I've bet him in all three games since Ja's come back. He's made them exponentially better, but there seems to be this resistance. The market has moved against them in every single game since he's returned, including today. We're finally starting to see this again. Open 3.5 overnight. We're up to 5.5 in favor of New Orleans. What have you made of this return for Ja, what you've done with Memphis?
I bet him the other night against Atlanta, and I took a bad number. The money just kept coming in on Atlanta, and I think you could even got the Grizzlies +2 at game time, certainly +1.5. So it's interesting because when the Grizzlies first burst on the scene, like 2 or 3 years ago, perhaps. Remember when Ja got hurt? And the Grizzlies didn't miss a beat, and they went on a tremendous run. And I did really well with them because I started betting them once he went out. But, this year was just completely different because they had struggled at the point guard position, number one, more than anything. And really the guard position. They just couldn't fill that, whatever they were doing. And, they were trying to run a new offense as well. So, this year's team was just totally different than they've been over the previous year. So I thought him coming back, would give this team a tremendous lift. And, it wasn't like he was coming back from injury as well. So, he'd been practicing with the team and around. But, so I think that was a question. Would they hit the ground running? Obviously, that first half against New Orleans, they didn't. But they've come back and played very well since that first half. And, I've been kind of betting them over the total. Finally had a winner the other night with Atlanta. I'll be on that game over the total again tonight.
Oh, you like it? Okay, I was going to ask you about that because when they just played, you brought that game up. You're right. They only had 41 at halftime. It was a low-scoring first quarter ER when it was 25-21 Memphis. So that total did actually take some money on the under. It closed 228, 228.5. So we're sitting at about 229.5 this morning. You're expecting more points in this game tonight, huh?
Yeah, JVT, you mentioned it with the market because, the money has been coming in against Memphis, also under the total. All three of these totals have gotten bet under the total. This one seems, Mitch, as you mentioned, this one closed, 229 the last time they played, essentially just a week ago. So I would expect, this to exist kind of right as it is. But no, I would expect Memphis. That's the thing you have to understand about the Grizzlies so far this year. They haven't been playing at that fast of a pace. They haven't been able to figure anything out at the guard position. And, again, running this new offense, and they haven't shot well with that. So this offense should get much, much better. Obviously, the pace get better, and Ja doesn't really give you anything from a defensive standpoint. So, yeah, it certainly would make sense that, and again, you have to remember the Grizzlies, as we just talked overall standpoint, 9-19. This team needs to win a lot of these games where, they're a short favorite or an underdog.
All right, ER, so let's go to the inverse of power ratings. When we're talking about Boston, how low have you gotten on Detroit? Because the crazy part about this losing streak is they are 5-20-1 by my count over the course of this 26-game losing streak, and they get Brooklyn here today again. How low have you gotten for Detroit? Because they're not even covering some of these numbers.
No, it's bad. I mean, I certainly didn't see that coming. I thought Detroit had some little bit of upside coming into the season, but boy, it's been bad. And you mentioned just for a bad team to be that bad against the point spread as well, you just don't see that all the time. With that said, I probably I didn't bet it yet, but I might come up with a small bet on them tonight. Just the fact that obviously they don't want to lose this, break this losing streak here, or set the NBA record, if you will. They are catching a bunch of points. It's kind of that back-to-back situation where they just played the Nets the other night. So and obviously the Nets win that game. So it's a little bit of a plus situation for them. And obviously for me, it seems like they get Durham back, and he's been their best player. They've definitely missed him when he's been out. He's expected to go here tonight, so they at least have some positive things going for them. I think it's worth probably getting some sort of bet on them tonight.
Follow the money.
But yeah, it's bad.
Okay, here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, our guest Aaron Renning. Follow him on X. He's at ER Sports 1. He's one of the best at betting the NBA that there is. The T-Wolves are the 1 seed right now. ER in the West, up by 2 games. Nuggets are hot. They won 5 straight. They're 2 back. OKC, currently the 3 seed, and those 2 teams play tonight. OKC now is a 5-point favorite. I checked that. I'm sorry. It's between 3 and 4. I was looking at the wrong game. They're between 3 and 4 this morning. Total is about 227 or so. Which team are you higher on overall between the Wolves and the Thunder?
That's a good question. I mean, I've certainly bet the Thunder about more than any other team the last year and a half, I guess. They've been great. It's really been impressive how they've just continued to excel and cover these numbers. With that said, I like this T-Wolves team a lot as well. Probably haven't bet on them as much. Again, it just seems like the marketplace was with them pretty early in the season. But this is a game where you'd love to see a guy like Towns play, who's questionable. Not sure if he's going to go here tonight, as you see both teams at full strength. As far as being a playoff contender, for me, it would be Minnesota. Just the fact that you have, kind of that game-changing player in Ant with Edwards. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a high-powered guy like Towns, et cetera. And, they're just so good from a defensive standpoint when they're on as well. So, there's plenty of firepower. I think last year, I remember I took a huge flyer on them at big odds to win the West or whatever it was. So I guess I have to be some sort of a believer in this team.
Yeah, we only have like 30 seconds here. Anything else that you like tonight?
I think the Magic are in a great situation. I mean, Washington just comes back from a West Coast trip. You have a holiday here yesterday. They actually covered all 4 numbers, but just a dreadful spot here. So I'll be on the Magic tonight, guys.
Very good. Love talking to you, man. Thanks so much for the time. Happy holidays. Have a great weekend, okay?
Yeah, Happy New Year to you guys as well. Thank you.
Good to talk to you,
Yep. Aaron Renning, ER, and he's on X at ER Sports 1 as well. Very, very good on the association.
One of my idols.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Good dude, too. We do have a full card today in the NBA. You're VSiN's very own NBA senior betting analyst. We have to get into it. I have to ask you then, forget winning the game, will the Pistons finally cover tonight?
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Check out the betting splits up on the website, vsin.com/splits. All numbers courtesy of DraftKings. Get money bets for every single game, and they're up to date, so you know that they're accurate. Every 5 minutes, that bad boy is refreshed, and it's not just for today's games. It's for future events as well. One of the many ways that you can up your game as a bettor. Check out the betting splits at vsin.com/splits, and check out all your subscription options at vsin.com/subscribe.
We'll get some best bets now in the bowl games and one NFL pick as VSiN contributor Will Hill joins the program. He's on X at not the Will Hill. Happy holidays, pal. How was Christmas?
Ooh.
It was good. It came and went pretty quickly. I don't know. I mean, I think as you get older, man, you start football season. We wait so long for it to get here, and you look up, and it's like middle of the season, and before you know it, it's Christmas. So sort of like the football season. It came and went just faster than usual this year. Right. It feels like.
Will's a virile young man, 4 kids now at this point. How many kids you got? How many toys were you putting together?
Yeah, a lot of boxes, a lot of garbage bags, filling stuff up yesterday. So Santa was pretty good. I know you probably had your hands full yesterday too, JVT.
Oh yeah.
Combined 6 kids then between you two. A lot of live betting then during the games yesterday. A lot of kids get out of my way. Everything's.
My favorite Will story is I remember we were talking about the dogs earlier, right? And I was like, if your kids running around, we'd be complaining. I walked up to the South Point studio one day, I saw this kid running around. I was like, what's a kid running around here for? That was Will's kid. That was the first time I met him.
Of course. I do the same thing if you ever brought one of your kids here.
That's right.
All right, so before we get to the bowl games, there is a game that you like in the NFL. Now, the number dropped after yesterday's action a little bit. The look-ahead had Eagles around 12 against the Cardinals. Now they're down to 9.5. Do you want to make a case here for Kyler and the boys in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, at 9.5, might as well just wait. Hope you get a 10 again. 9.5 sort of a dead number, obviously. I like Arizona. I don't know that this Philly team can be laying basically double digits to anyone. If I had any idea Tyrod Taylor was playing quarterback yesterday for the Giants, I would have bet the hell out of the Giants plus the 14. Once he went in, that was a different game. And that's just Tyrod Taylor with not a lot of weapons and a bad offensive line. I just think Philly's got all sorts of issues in the secondary, linebackers. They can't cover. Arizona has Gannon, so maybe there's some familiarity in terms of knowing the Eagles, and that's an advantage a little bit for Arizona. I don't know how healthy Hurts is. Hurts has really turned the ball over a lot this year. I just don't know if we're at the point with this Eagles team that they could be laying basically double digits to anyone. So I'll take Arizona. They weren't competitive the other day, but they've been pretty competitive all year. They've been in a lot of these games. They could probably have a lot more than 3 wins. As somebody who has their underwin total, they've been very close in a lot of these games. So that looks like a lot of points. I'll take the points here with the dog.
All right, let's transition to college. You and I share a play here. I bet this a little bit earlier, though, in bowl season. Kansas UNLV up to 67.5 now for a total. Rebels also catching 13. What do you like here in the guaranteed rate bowl out in Phoenix?
I like the over. I don't know if I like the first half over more, so I'll probably just split my bet and go halfway. I think, look, let's face it, the bowl season, it's not what it used to be. We've gotten a lot of duds, a lot of opt-outs. A lot of these games have been really hard to watch unless you got a bet in it. This one's going to be fun. A lot of offense for both sides. UNLV can really make explosive plays, especially on the ground game. Over 2,300 yards rushing this year, 4.5 yards per carry. And Kansas, you worry a little bit. They lost the offensive coordinator, who's very highly regarded. He's on to Penn State. But Kansas can hit you for big plays too. So I think this is going to be back and forth, a lot of fireworks. I don't know that either defense really has a solution here. I just worry that UNLV gets behind, and throwing's not their game, as you know, JVT. So if they're behind in like the second half, Kansas can just run it, drain the clock. That the game would get away from UNLV. That's the scenario I worry about. So maybe this is also a good live betting opportunity where, hey, if Kansas does get a lead, it would be hard for UNLV to come back. But to me, this is an over. I think we see a lot of points. I think we see both teams, in the 30s. If I had to bet the point spread, I'd probably take the 13 here with UNLV. So should be a fun game. Should be a fun one to watch tonight.
Yep.
The Quick Lane Bowl is an early morning game out here on the West Coast, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast. It's played in Detroit. And now it is the MAC against the Big Ten. Minnesota disappointing 5-7 on the season, but they squeaked into one of these bowl games because, we have so many of them. They're laying 3.5 in the contest. Not a lot of points expected, 40.5. What do you want to do with it?
I mentioned some of these bowl games have been hard to watch. This might fall under that category.
Oh, yeah.
And look, it's the early game. It's standalone. People are home. People are going to want to bet it. I would take the points here with Bowling Green. I think this is going to be – it's hard to go under 40.5, especially when you're playing in the Dome on a fast track. But this is going to be like a service academy game. Both these teams just run the ball, take a lot of time. Fleck has been good in both. But look, Bowling Green, I think, ran the ball 55% of the time. Minnesota ran it about 60% of the time. Neither one is going to have big plays. Minnesota lost their defensive coordinator, Rossi. He's out. So, to me, this is like, a 16, 14, 19, 17 type of game. I don't think either team pulls away. I think this is limited possessions. I would take the points here. As we've seen, as we we're just talking about off the air, when in doubt, just take the points with these games because these underdogs have done very well, not just covering, but winning these games outright. A lot of opt-outs, a lot of variance, a lot of moving parts with all this stuff. So when in doubt, take the points. And you know what? You could do worse than just blindly betting these dogs on the money line. You would have done pretty well this weekend. I'll take the points here with Bowling Green.
All right. Cotton Bowl. Ohio State taking on Missouri. I actually think this number should be closer to 3, Will, especially when pretty much everybody's playing outside of quarterback Kyle McCord. What do you make of this now that Ohio State is a small favorite of about 1 point?
Yeah, it's been a fascinating study in terms of looking at the line movement, where it was 6.5, then it was Missouri favored by 2.5. So you see a 9-point swing. Now we're settled somewhere in the middle here. I like Ohio State. I just think they've got better athletes. They're going to play their guys. Henderson's going to play. It sounds like Harrison's going to play. The last we saw, which I was surprised. I didn't expect him to play, but he's been practicing. Seems like he's good to go. Obviously, they're going to lose. They lost their quarterback, McCourt, but McCourt wasn't any good anyway. You're going to have a little different dynamic dimension here with Brown as a running quarterback for Ohio State. And look, it's Ohio State and it's Missouri. Ohio State just gets much better players. Ohio State has much better athletes. They're one loss. Look, they're not one of the more deserving teams in terms of the college football playoff, but I mean, based on all the metrics, all the rankings, this was a top 3 or 4 team in the country. One loss at Michigan, a completely forgivable loss. Day somewhat on the hot seat, so he's motivated. I think Ohio State gets done here. I think Ohio State wins this game.
How about Saturday at 4 o'clock? This is going to look a little weird because the Orange Bowl has always been, like 8 o'clock Eastern or whatever throughout pretty much my entire lifetime, but not this year. And it's just it's a complete mess. It has been ever since the game was announced. More players opting out. Florida State going to be down to quarterback number 19, I think, on the year. But they're now catching 17 this morning at DraftKings against Georgia with a total of 44. What's your approach here? Because it's so ugly, Will.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, growing up, not even growing up, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, this would have been a hell of a game. Georgia against an undefeated Florida State. I mean, we all would have been just sitting there watching every play of this game. Now it's like nobody cares. Neither team cares. I have a hard time seeing Florida State score here. Obviously, no Jordan Travis. Rodemaker's in the transfer portal. He's not going to play. So it's going to be Brock Glenn, who we haven't seen much of. We did see him against Louisville, and he's 8 of 12 for 55 yards, even though they won that game. Team total is 13.5 for Florida State at DraftKings, minus 125. I just think you bet the under here for Florida State and say, hey, if you somehow get to 2 touchdowns, you beat me. I don't know how motivated Florida State is here. They've got some opt-outs. I don't think they're circling this game as, we're going to show everybody we should have been in the championship. We're going to show everyone, we were wrong. I think they're just going to kind of take their ball and go home here. So to me, them getting to 14 points against this Georgia defense is unlikely. Florida State team total under 13.5, I think, is the play here.
I do wonder how much all this litigation and noise around Florida State affects this game, right? Like, we're talking about trying to get out of the ACC, suing all of this, the grant of rights or whatever it is, the transfer now. It seems like it's just such a negative situation for the Seminoles.
It does, and look, you can say, hey, we belong to the playoffs, and you went undefeated in the Power 5 conference. There's certainly a case to be made, and it's going to look bad if you go out and you lose by 30 to Georgia, but that's probably what we're looking at here. You can't. It's hard to lay 17 when you had such so many opportunities to lay a better number, but this feels like Georgia rolls here, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really does. Like, are we going to be surprised if we're talking about a game that's 33-0? I mean, honestly,
right.
if they get shut out and do absolutely nothing in this game, I won't be.
No, and this is one where live betting will be a good opportunity where we'll know early. If it's 14-0, Georgia early, I don't think we see a run from Florida State. I don't know if they're going to be able to move the ball. I don't think they'll be able to score.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. Great spot, Will. Follow him on X. He's at Not The Will Hill. Have a great New Year coming up this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, boys. Merry Christmas. Thanks for having me, guys.
Back at you. So a little bit more here on the Kansas UNLV game. You're going to it. You've covered the team all year long, UNLV here locally, as well as working here at VSiN. Is it? He likes it over 67.5. Just going to be back and forth the entire time?
I think so. And here's the low-key good part about it, because generally turnovers aren't the best if you get long scoring drives. But Jason Bean and Jade Mayava are 2 quarterbacks that will put the ball in danger. Could set up some quick scores, right? Set up some short fields. We saw it Mayava in the last few games. I wrote about it up on the website. He's got a large share of the blame the last 2 games for this team failing to cover and losing both games outright, UNLV, because of the way that he's played. I think they'll be well prepared and ready to go. I think you get 2 explosive offenses, but you get 2 quarterbacks who've got a history of putting the ball in danger, which allow other teams to get short field and score on you. So.
I think today this game's going to be a good one to watch as well for live betting purposes.
Yep.
That could also be a factor here between these two.
Ton of volatility, back and forth, yeah.
If UNLV is going to be in it the whole time, you can get some big numbers here to maybe.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We'll run down some in-pocket plays for you coming up here next.